In this video, I've got my tools put away and I brought out my cleaning and polishing compounds. I think like most people, I started years ago with alcohol, tons of Q-tips and a couple old toothbrushes to clean everything, and it seemed to work okay. This process just took a long time. I still use alcohol and Q-tips and toothbrushes today, but over the years I've tried a lot of other products. I've tried Simple Green, not too bad, non-toxic, biodegradable, good housekeeping seal, whatever that is. There's not any ingredients listed. There's a mention of volatile organic compounds are less than 5G/L per CARB method 310. I don't know what that means. It it doesn't smell bad. It didn't burn my fingers or anything. I just wasn't that impressed with it, but I used it for a while. Not too much anymore. I tried different kinds of lemon and orange cleaners. Supposed to be a degreaser, which most of the vintage machines that I work on have lots of grease and grime and stuff to clean up. So I gave it a try. Again, there's no ingredients listed at all. It smells nicer than Simple Green, but it still wasn't quite what I was looking for. It didn't seem to be that good of a deal. I was at a sew and back store one time, and a couple of guys there told me to try Goof Off, and on the really tough stuff. Boy, this smells bad. It's got a lot of petrochemicals, I guess. A lot of warnings about harmful or fatal if swallowed, harmful vapor, eye irritant. The one time I used it with pretty good success was a very old machine that the gears were just clogged up with a graphite type dry lubricant that I think was put on when there was already grease left on the gears, and it just embedded itself in there and dried up, and somebody had tried to put some new grease on top of it, some kind of real sticky brown stuff that, man, it was just a mess. And I had a hard time cleaning it, so I finally tried this, and it did help loosen and break some of that stuff up. I also tried Varsol paint thinner, paint thinner and turpentine, which may be the same thing. They all smelled real bad, and I was sure to wear gloves and my eye protection anytime I used any of this stuff, and it was just too much for me. I don't know what it was doing to the environment either. But that, I will say that one time it did help. Then I had a couple other guys recommend a gun bore cleaner. And I'm not sure how you pronounce this. It's real famous. They've been making it 100 years. It's Hops or Hops. Number 9 gun bore cleaner. Real flammable, harmful or fatal if swallowed. I didn't see a lot on here about what's in there, but it seems like I looked it up online or something, or maybe I requested the material safety data sheet, and it does have kerosene in it. Oh yeah, here it says contains kerosene. So it's very, very strong, very volatile. I live in Arizona, and I actually met a winter visitor here from Canada who had been a Singer repairman in Canada for about 35 years. And he said in the old days that with the black machines, when he started, they'd take off the motor and the motor belt and maybe the light bulb and stuff, and they would just put that machine in a 5 or 10 gallon bucket of brasso or kerosene and just soak it overnight. And he said it really got all the gunk and crud off of there. And I said, well, how did you clean the machine after that? And he said, yeah, it smelled really bad. And, it was hard to eliminate that stuff then afterwards, but it really cleaned everything great. So I tried this. It does have a real unique smell that wasn't pleasant to me. When I asked about it at the sporting goods store, they thought it was a great idea. They loved the smell of it. Nothing like the smell of cleaning your gun after you've been to the range. But it didn't, I think the kerosene part, acted on the grease and stuff some, but for all the baggage it carries with it, I didn't care to use it anymore. Did get some grime off of there, but man, it really stunk up the place. I was outside. It took me a while to get rid of that smell. So I really don't use that anymore. I have used WD-40 and 3-in-1 high performance penetrant. I think these are just about the same type of product, just two different brands. The freeze stuck parts, that can do that. I have used that with success to spray around and cut through the stuff and loosen up parts when some of the mechanisms are frozen. But then again, you got these breathing hazards and flammable hazards and things like that, and pretty high VOCs, organic compounds, and I have used them with success, but I didn't like using them, and it took me a long time to get this product off. I had to put like a lot of fresh oil and wipe it, and boy, it just didn't like the smell that it left behind. I can't imagine somebody sitting down and sewing in front of a machine that smells like automobile garage bay or something. But I have used them, and occasionally I've still used them to break free some parts. I didn't say in my tool part about using a hair dryer, which I've had some success with to heat up the machine parts and be able to swab and wipe off the excess stuff, and spray a little bit of this on, and let it cool down. And I think the expansion and contraction help break some parts free, and then this could actually get in between the parts. But I don't know, maybe if I'd heated it up and cooled it down and just used alcohol, it might have been the same. Then I've had to use alcohol and other cleaners to get this oily, weird petro stuff off of the machine. So I occasionally use this, but not that much. Then a few years back, I really went on a search to try and find something that I really liked, and I did research and stuff, and I kept hearing about hand cleaners and waterless hand cleaners, like gunk or goop, and how great they were supposed to be. You put it on, you wipe it off, didn't smell too bad. Still had a lot of wiping and stuff, but it cut through the grease pretty good and the varnishing. So I went to, I was near a Home Depot one time. I went in there to look for it. While I was looking for it, I found this. And this is absolutely the best stuff I've ever used. This is my main go-to cleaner. It's called Crud Cutter. It is concentrated, and usually I just use it at full strength. Sometimes if I'm going to soak stuff, I'll cut it half with water and cover the part and let it sit for hours or overnight. But this stuff is great. Cuts grease, grime, oil, tar, crud. And some of these 50-year-old machines, you open them up, there is a lot of crud in there. I mean, there's just dust and microparticles of thread that have embedded in the oil and the grease with more dust, and I'd rather have an under-maintained machine to clean up than an over-maintained one where people have used 3-in-1 oil and motor oil and axle grease and Crisco and who knows what else on there. But I really like this product. I buy it by the gallon now, and I used up the quart the first time. I went to buy another one, and then I saw down below it a gallon jug, and a gallon costs about as much as 2 of these, so it kind of cuts the price in half. And I reused the spray bottle. This bottle's getting pretty old and got a little air leak, I think, in the pump system, so I'm going to go invest in a very nice just spray bottle to use. But they market it as earth-friendly, non-toxic, biodegradable cleaner and degreaser, and that's what it is for me. There is a label here that says designed for environmental by the United States Environmental Protection Agency, recognized for safer chemistry, with their website you can go to at the government about that. You can also go to the Crud Cutter website, and they also have a toll-free number if you have questions about the product. They have a 24-hour medical emergency number and stuff like this, but they have some nice charts on here about what it'll work on, and if you should use it full strength or half strength or 1/10 strength and so forth. But I tried it on a few pretty bad parts and was just shocked at how clean everything came off. It does have a caution for eye and skin irritant, but I've sprayed it right on parts I'm holding in my fingers and haven't had, it didn't burn. It doesn't smell bad. It didn't peel my skin like some of this other stuff. And I've developed a kind of a weird process to clean machines now, which I'll show you in a later video. But by far, absolutely, this is my go-to cleaner. And again, I'll demonstrate it in later videos, but you can put it on Q-tips, you can dip a toothbrush in it and scrub stuff, and I've just gotten to the point where I disassemble a lot of the parts on the machine and just clean them real easy. And then I've got a process where I spray the whole machine with this and then wash it off and dry it. So I guess I really can't say enough about this. When I use it just inside parts of the machine, then I'm still using water or alcohol to rinse this off. The smaller parts I just put in a strainer and a stainless steel sink and spray and let it set a little bit and rinse it off and throw it on a towel and dry it and let it air dry a little bit. One thing I did find the first time I used it on I think it was a 301A, the beige with the very smooth paint. The paint had oxidized a little bit, but I sprayed it on there, but I got a phone call. I actually left it on there about 10 minutes before I rinsed it off, and it did dull the paint. I had to buy a very mild paint polisher to work the shine back on that. But most of the time on the painted part of a machine like this, or the plastic or the nylon, rubber, I don't use it on any belt, but the chrome, this is cast aluminum, and inside it's just bare aluminum. I have never had it stain a plastic, a nylon, aluminum, steel, chrome, anything like that. It's just so quick and easy that instead of spending hours with Q-tips and alcohol, I just spend some of that time dismantling parts and give the whole thing a quick spray, wash it off, dry it, and put a light coat of oil on everything while I test all the parts and put it back together and so forth. So I buy it by the gallon and refill this, and it doesn't have any bad smell either, which I really like. So you'll see, like I said later, how I use this. So that's most of my cleaning adventures. For polishing some of the metal, I narrowed it down to a few products. This is a brasso. It's been around 100 years. It does not smell good. It's got a strong smell, but I will use this to clean metal parts that don't come clean with the crud cutter. You can use it on brass, copper, chrome, aluminum. I usually wipe it on with a little sponge or a brush and let it set a little bit and wipe it off with an old rag and maybe rinse it with water then like that. But it's about like $6 for this, and that's one of the first ones I tried, and it still works good for me. I don't use it on paint or plastic, just metal and chrome and the needle bar, levers, stuff like that. So right now it's about half full. I've had this over 2 years. You just shake it real good, and a lot of times I'll shake it and just take the cap off, and inside the cap is enough to dip my sponge in and wipe apart. But it's good. Then I heard from a few expert, quote unquote, about this wonderful polish from the United Kingdom called Peak, P-E-E-K. This is the 100 milliliter or 3 ounce, I guess about 3 ounce. I finally found it on Amazon. It was about, I don't know, 12 or $14 for this tube. It's got a lot better smell, and it's like a little blue semi-gritty paste here. It is harder on your skin, and it does a good job. I think on the box it was something about they're the metal polishing company for the royal family in England, and it does a nice job on chrome for sure. They say you can use it on ceramic and fiberglass. I think it also has some wax in it, and to me, whatever I polished with it, I think the wax was supposed to leave a little protective film, but to me, the parts all look filmy when I'm done. So I'll rub it on and leave it a little bit and rub it off real good and get a clean cloth and buff it, and get a microfiber cloth and buff it, and it does do good, especially on shiny metals. But to me, it was kind of pricey. I don't think when this tube runs out, I don't think I would buy any more. Maybe, we'll see. But it's a good product, and I wouldn't hesitate to use it. It's just hard to find. And there's other metal polishing products. These are basically the two that I use the most. I think one time I bought another one at like O'Reilly Auto Parts, And it was okay. It was similar to this in effect. Didn't smell as bad as the brasso. But when I'm going to do all those little shiny parts, I usually sit out on the patio and turn on the radio and listen to a ball game or something out in the air and clean them up real good. I put on the latex glove and rub this stuff all over and wipe it off as best I can. Then I'll bring it in and rinse it with warm water and dry it real well. The one other, it's really not a cleaning product, but this brand is Versa Hem. This is a metal grinding compound, and this is a fine grade. And when I use this is if I've got a defective part that I have to replace, that is kind of a metal on metal part. I'll give you a good example. If you buy a machine and the bobbin holder or bobbin case is missing, and you buy a new one, most of the time on a machine like this you're going to be buying a used one from eBay or some other website. And when you mix the parts from two different machines, a lot of times there's a different wear pattern. Like the bobbin holder you was used for 30 years in another machine, and maybe it's worn a certain way, and this hook in this machine is worn a slightly different way. So when you put those parts together, sometimes they're just a wee bit loose or kind of noisy, and you can tell. So this has a little bit of grease mixed in it. See, I open it up. It's a real black paste, and it's got some kind of a ground silica in it. And if you can see that, I'll use about that much. And I will rub it around the race on the hook. I might do a demo video of this. And then put the hook or the bobbin holder in the hook, and then slowly get it to start turning by hand. And it is, I mean, silica's sand, right? So it's like you got sand in the gears, but pretty soon I can start turning complete revolutions, and I'll slowly turn it until it goes around, and then I'll turn on the power and run it slowly. And eventually it kind of grinds down the sand in there, so I'll wipe it off and maybe do that 2 or 3 times. And then you got to be, the bobbin holder is easy to clean. You can take it out and brush it off and wash it. But the hook, you have to be real careful to get all of that out of there, right? And you just use a little tiny bit because you don't want it going anywhere else other than right on the pieces you're going to grind. And I did that before with a fork gear, and one time I had to replace a metal gear and mesh it with the other metal gear, and before I did that, boy, it was loud and cranky. And after running about an hour and kept putting this paste on, then I had to take it all apart and clean it, but it really helped a lot. So I just went to like the O'Reilly's down the road from me and said, hey, I need some valve grinding. And they said, yeah, do you want fine or coarse? And I said, well, give me the most fine that you have. And I told him, and he figured it would work. He said, you could probably find some other, metal polishing stuff that has a little grit. It might work. And I said, no, I'm getting up in years. I'm not patient anymore, so let's try this. And this has worked well for me. And he had a couple other brands. I just took the one that was the smallest tube, because you don't need much. For cleaning or for oiling and lubricating, these are the only product I'll use. This is Tri-Flow. This is a Tri-Flow Superior lubricant. I heard about this from an acquaintance who owns a bicycle shop. And I asked him about lubricants for bicycle chains and gears, and he just said, oh, after 15 years, this is the only thing he'll use. And I actually bought my first 2-ounce bottle of this from him, and then I loved it. It's really great. It's got PTFE in it, which I read about and he told me about, but I can't. It's some kind of a Teflon thing, but it doesn't varnish up. It seems to hang on to the metal you put it on much better than like Singer sewing oil or other machine oil. The only thing you have to be sure is to shake it real good, because for their oil compound they add this PTFE, and over time it can settle. And so my friend and the product says be sure and shake it real well to mix that all back in. It comes with a little drip tube you can put in there and bend around to get into all the little places on a sewing machine. When that 2-ounce bottle ran dry, I started buying 6-ounce bottles and refilling the 2-ounce. But that absolutely the best oil for a sewing machine I have ever found, by far. And they make some other products, this company. You can go find them on the web, and I think they're tryflowlubricants.com. For the machines like these that have metal gearing, you use a grease. And of course they recommend Singer grease, and you can find it. Singer makes a gear grease and a motor grease. And the Singer grease is white, and after a few years, over time it kind of turns greenish. But I started using this Tri-Flow clear synthetic grease. Waterproof, prevents rust and corrosion. It's a chemical resistant, non-staining, and it's got this PTFE in it also. And it's a clear grease. And get some up here and you can see it almost looks, it does stay on the gear very, very well, and you don't need much of it. When I see these videos where they're just glopping on grease on the gears, I'm just amazed, because when I go to clean the machines, that's all over the inside. And I mentioned before in the tools, these cut down paint brushes. This is the one I'm currently using for grease, and I'll just take a little dab of grease about like that, and I'll start brushing it on the gear. Rotate, brush, maybe a couple of these for a gear. And then once I've got it all the way around a gear, I will run the machine at a low speed to spread that all around. And then there's usually where it's bunched up at the tip of the gear or the back of the gear, and then I'll wipe off the excess with a Q-tip. I'll show you that towards the end of this whole series. But any grease or oil that's not on the part it's lubricating is a waste, and it's just going to collect dirt and dust. So now you've seen my chemicals, the cleaning, the lubricating, polishing. The last will be this Meguiar's Carnauba Plus Wax. When everything is done, I put at least 3 coats of this, sometimes more, on the outside of the machine, including the chrome. And if it gets on the plastic, we're good. I don't do brushed type metals with this, but I take the applicator and cut it into these little 2-inch pieces and put the wax on, let it dry to a haze, wipe it off with a cloth and buff it with a microfiber. It's the best wax I found. It's pretty pricey. I think this was 15 or 20 bucks. But you can see I've done about 20 machines with this, and I'm making a dent in it, but it's still over an inch deep of product in here. So I felt it's worth it. It's a good wax. You spend all that time cleaning it up, you might as well protect the finish and have it look good. So Meguiar's Gold Class Carnauba Plus, but any car wax will do, I'm sure. So that's the kind of the first phase, getting started to talk to you about the tools, the chemicals, and the next video I'm going to do is for the resources that I used, and give you some access to information about that. So I hope you'll come back and look at the next video. Thanks for watching any that you have, and I hope it was worth your time. Thanks.